Now, I didn't actually promise you this earlier, but I should have, is that if you want to learn how to build soil, make soil for either a container garden or a raised bed, Shauna Coronado's book, 101 Gardening Hacks, is an excellent resource. I'm not sure it's here in the bookstore right now, but we'll be back, Mother's News will be back here in Topeka, and it will be in Topeka in October for their 2-day event, but I know it'll be sold there, and of course it can be purchased online, but she provides some really good advice on how you can build soil. What are the things that one of the things that you're going to want to do? I'm going the wrong way here. Excuse me. Come on, go backwards. There we go. Okay, hitting the wrong button here. User error. So one of the things that you'll want to do, and maybe all of you do this right now, is compost. We dispose of billions, millions, and millions and millions of tons of good, nutrient-rich organic material every year. Leaves and grass clippings and twigs from our lawns and kitchen scraps. It's sinful, the amount of really good organic matter that gets diverted to landfills where it should be going back to the soil. So composting is really critical to self-sufficiency. I like a 3-bin system because I'm never in a hurry for compost. I'm the lazy composter. I just want to fill up a compost bin, move to the next one, fill that up, move to the third one, and by then the first one's ready to roll. I don't turn compost, I don't water it, I don't worry about the carbon-nitrogen ratio. I'm the laziest composter in the world. And it always amazes me. You'll see these books that thick on composting. It's like, come on guys, it's a lot simpler than that. Throw this organic stuff in there, maybe throw a little dirt in there, and you're done. Anyway, so I hope I don't offend anybody here who's a consummate composter, but it's pretty simple to make a compost bin. I like making them out of old pallets. This is a design for a bin that we made on our place. We just used some 4x12 pallets along the back, some 2x2 pallets in the front, and some 4x4 pallets on the end. And then I built some separators, so I created 3 bins for composting. So we fill one, and when that's full, we leave it and move to the next one. We've actually never needed all 3. We've never had 3 growing at the same time. I filled them, well, it doesn't matter. But, so just keep that in mind. I don't really think you need 3, unless maybe you want to store your cover material in one of those bins. Now, we cleaned out the chicken coop and we had a lot of straw, and I had this brilliant idea that, well, I'll just pile the straw right next to the compost pile and then use that to cover every time I put something in there. I'll use that straw to cover it up. And anybody have chickens in here? Okay, so tell me what happened 5 minutes after the chickens got in there, and what did they do?
They spread it over.
Yeah, spread it over about 2 acres, you know. So, a really stupid idea. If you want to do something like this, you're going to need to put it in a bin and probably put a cover on it, okay? And maybe even keep it slightly watered, keep water out. So, anyway, we also, chickens love compost. They love scratching through anything. I love chickens. They're just amazing. We have 100 chickens, and I love them dearly. Now, I also want to talk to you about a topic where viewer discussion is advised. Okay, and so we're going to be talking about a topic anyway. Viewer discussion is aside. This little guy says, "Bring it on, Dan." Now, in our society, a lot of our systems are very linear. We've created extremely linear systems for production and consumption. Okay, like food. Food's a really good example. The crops that farmers grow suck nutrients out of the soil and out of the atmosphere to some extent. And those crops provide food. The food then, of course, is oftentimes processed and delivered to stores. Then we purchase it, we eat it, we excrete it. Some of it's used to build muscle protein and provide energy, but we end up excreting a lot of solids and liquids. The solids typically go to either a septic tank if you live in the country, or if you live in a city or suburb, it goes to a sewage treatment plant. They settle out the solids and they end up in a landfill or maybe an incinerator. Okay? So all that nutrient, all those nutrients that came out of the soil are ending up, yeah, back in the earth, but basically entombed in a landfill, okay? Same thing with the liquids. The liquids are, the good nutrients are taken out of those liquids, and then presumably relatively clean water is dumped back into streams. Now, Mother Nature designed a very different kind of system to handle waste, and I'm using waste with quotation marks around it. In nature, the economy of nature is built on renewable resources and recycling. And the most important lessons we can learn from nature is, hey, if you're going to sustain yourself on this planet, renewable resources and recycling, those are two keys to living sustainably. So plants produce food that feeds everything else. Okay? Everything else, all the microorganisms, all the animals on our planet are fed from plants. Even if you're a meat eater, all those nutrients originally came from plants. The Bible says it, all flesh is grass, which is true. So in nature, we have this wonderful cyclic system, or organic matter, nutrients from the soil are passed through these food chains, these food webs, and of course plants and animals die and make waste, and die and are decomposed. They also animals produce waste, and then that's consumed by a whole group of organisms called decomposers. And they eat that stuff. That is, our feces are their morning coffee and donuts. All right. I've never said it that way before. Now I'm wishing I hadn't had breakfast. And they die, and they produce waste, and ultimately it returns all those nutrients back into the soil. Okay? Everything is recycled in nature. And that's a key to sustainability. Absolutely nothing is wasted in nature. In fact, all food is waste. All food is waste. So Mother Nature did a really, really good job of designing a system. However it happened, it designed an amazing system to sustain life on a finite planet. So nature gets an A+. We don't do so well. We get kind of an F, maybe an F-. As a college professor, I've only given one F- in my life, and this would be maybe the second one. We do have an opportunity, though, to break that cycle. We do have an opportunity to to create cyclic systems that return those nutrients back to the soil. So one thing that you can do, in addition to just composting the organic scraps or waste from your kitchen, is also to consider recycling human manure and urine. It's an extremely nutrient-rich material that needs to go back to the soil to sustain life on this planet. So you can do it through a composting toilet. There's some beautiful composting toilets, commercially made composting toilets that will compost this material for you and produce a really nice, rich, odor-free, organic humus, the nicest stuff you've ever seen that you can add to your gardens. They fit very nicely in a conventional bathroom. This is one model from a company called Sunmar, which is out of Canada. It has a big rotating drum in there, and every time you go to the bathroom, you deposit your stuff in that drum, and you rotate it to agitate it. You throw some organic matter in, like sawdust, to help dry it out and to also help decomposition process. And when it's all done, you pull that tray out at the bottom, and you've got this really amazing, rich organic material. So that's one way to do it. There's a lot of ways to approach this. This is, in our home, we have a remote composting toilet. This is a waterless toilet. Basically, it's just a throne, if you could call it that, upstairs, and the waste drops through a chute into a commercial composter in our basement. And this does the same thing. It dries out the waste, and I go in there. Well, we no longer use this. I built one of my own, replaced it with one of my own. But when we were using this, every week or so you go in and spread some sawdust over the surface, you agitate it a little bit, and there's a tray on the bottom, and all this really neat waste comes off, or this organic material comes off the bottom. There are also low water toilets. This is a 1 pint flush toilet that can be used in a composting arrangement. If, for example, you don't have a basement where you can, and your toilet's not right above your basement, and your toilet's upstairs, and you have to use water, you can install one of these and run that low water flush down into your composting toilet. We've had a lot of trouble with these because they still produce a lot of water. They still, even though you're only using a pint of water to flush, whereas most toilets use about 1.5 gallons, you're still producing a lot of water. We have these kind of leaks, so I'm not a real big fan on those, to be honest with you. So here's an example of a house where they actually put 2 composting toilets in. It's a dry toilets, and then upstairs they put a low flush toilet in. So lots of opportunities. If you're thinking, hey, I don't want a compost toilet, you're thinking Forest Service, Forest Service or National Park Service, latrines, and you're thinking how smelly they are. This is a whole different breed of animal. If you manage them correctly, they're odorless, they're not smelly, awful receptacles for human waste. It's just a natural facility that can compost waste. So lots and lots and lots of opportunities to make this happen. I personally like building my own compost toilets. I have on our facility 5 different commercially available composting toilets, and the one I like the best is the one we built ourselves. All it is a simple wooden box with a 5-gallon bucket and a toilet seat. And it's called a composting toilet, but that's not really true. Basically, it's a poop bucket. You poo and you urinate in this thing. Every time you get done, you throw a little sawdust over it. And when it fills up, you carry it out to your compost pile, dump it on your compost pile, cover the compost pile with leaves or grass clippings or straw, and it quickly decomposes and becomes this great organic matter. Now there's an art to that. There's an art to getting it right. You can build your own. If you go online, you'll find instructions. I also wrote a book on it that I'll show you later called The Scoop on Poop, and the instructions are in that book if you want to build your own. It's kind of a cool idea if you just want to experiment with composting human waste. You could try it. You don't have to invest a lot of money. You can try it, learn the ins and outs of it, and see if it's something that would work for you. If you have a cabin, for example, and you need a toilet, this would be a great way to do it. Now, cover material is really important. You want to throw a material that will cover all the waste. We've experimented with leaves and straw and wood chips of different sizes, and the ones that we found the best actually are sawdust. That does the best covering, or a mix of the one in the middle are basically, it's a bagged compost cow manure mix that you buy from we buy from Lowe's. It comes very, very wet, so you've got to dry it out. It's really full of moisture. So it doesn't smell. It's just like really good topsoil. Just put it in a big tub, let it dry out, and it makes a nice cover. And then, of course, it accelerates the decomposition when this stuff gets into the compost pile. But we mostly use sawdust, and we don't have any sawmills near us, so we buy the pellets. We buy sawdust pellets that they use for bedding, pine bedding for horses. It's also the same pellets they use for pellet stoves. And we hydrate it. We fill a bucket about 1/3 of the way full, pour some water in, and then they hydrate, and it turns into sawdust. And when time comes, when they're full, we truck them out to the compost pile. And I'll tell you about the art of that in a little bit too. But I want to introduce you to some similar systems. These are cartage systems. These are not real, true composting toilets. These are just receptacles that you fill up with human excretions, and then you truck them out to your compost. This is called Nature's Head Composting Toilet. And basically it breaks down like this. There's a urine receptacle in the front. See that 2-gallon plastic urine receptacle in front. When you sit down, the urine is diverted to the front, feces drop through a hole in the back into the poop chamber. And when time comes to empty it, you can pull that urine bucket out. And we just take it down to the compost pile, pour it right on top of the compost pile. The challenge comes when you have to empty the poop bucket. Not the most pleasant thing in my life that I've ever done. They don't have a handle on it or anything, so you end up carrying this 30-pound, 40-pound chamber full of sawdust and human feces down to the compost toilet. Not the most pleasant thing you'll ever do in your life. I'm hoping that this manufacturer will put a handle on this in the future. They were in a talk I gave recently, and so I was complaining about this, so hopefully they will come up with a design to make this a little bit easier. You can, of course, transport this to a compost toilet in a wheelbarrow or a wagon too, so it makes it a lot more pleasant. You'll notice there's a little agitator on the side. See that little, this guy right here? So basically, every once in a while, you agitate it, throw a little bit of the sawdust on top. It works really well. We've used one of these out in our classroom for many years, probably since 2011. Very, very happy with it. It does have its downsides. There's another one that's fairly recent to the market, and I was given one a couple years, or a year and a half ago, by the founder of the company to try out. It's called Boone John Composting Toilet. Kind of the similar idea. Basically it breaks down like this. There's a poop chamber, but it is a bucket with a handle on it. The urine container is basically just a 1-gallon milk jug, and I really like this one. It works really well. They've got a nice agitator, and so when you do your thing, throw a little sawdust in there and you agitate it, and it kind of rolls. This is going to get really graphic. That's why I was saying viewer discretion is advised. So if you need to cover your eyes or your ears, go ahead and do it. But it kind of rolls the poop around like when cats do their kitty litter. And so I find that you don't need to put as much sawdust in there because it's a really neat agitation system. You just crank it and it just kind of rolls it around, covers it like jelly donuts, covers it with like a nice powdered sugar. And just because it's got powdered sugar, it's still not a jelly donut, okay? That's 2 food analogies today. I'm really on a roll here. We're gonna have to edit this out of the tape. Okay, so you will need to clean. It does get dirty around the edges there. I kind of like this one. We're using this one. We've been using it for now, I guess, a year and a half, and I'm liking this one a lot. There's another one I've never tried. This is what I like about my job, what I do for a living. I get to try all kinds of fun things. My mother would be so proud of me. Her son, the pioneer of the Poopmeister. So anyway, this is one called the Airhead. It has a lot. I'm told this is the original. This is where everybody copied from this one. You'll notice there are some handles for carrying the poop chamber. I've never tried it, so I don't know. The secret to composting human manure is that one, you pile it on your pile, and your piles tend to build up like this. So one of the first things that you need to do is make sure you build it more like a plateau or more like a mesa than a volcanic mountain. So you put one bucket in one corner, maybe kind of spread it around so it grows up like this rather than as a conical volcanic mountain. Okay, so that's one of the things, is spread it around. Now, and then cover it. And I swear to you guys, I've been doing this for years. It does not attract flies. It does not produce odor. You stand right next to it, and maybe when you first put it in there, you can smell something coming off it. And the minute you cover it, it's pretty odor-free. Then there are a couple things that you need to know. One of the issues is well, what about bacteria or fungi or pathogenic organisms, parasites? What's really interesting about composting toilets or compost bins for human manure is that after you deposit this material, the bacteria start to consume that organic matter. And that process is not 100% efficient. And so there's a lot of wasted energy as these bacteria begin to decompose this organic matter. Have you ever seen like a pile of horse manure on a cold winter day, you stick a pitchfork into it and it steams? Anybody had that experience? I learned this when I was a little kid in Connecticut. What you're seeing is heat that's being generated by those microorganisms. Okay? It's kind of the same thing that goes on in your body. Your cells are not 100% efficient. They burn glucose, consume glucose to make energy, but it's only about 30% efficient. There's a lot of waste heat, and that's why your body temperature is 98.6 degrees. It's waste heat from your body cells. Well, waste heat from microorganisms heats up this compost pile, brings the temperature up to about 120 pretty quickly, and then once those bacteria have had their fun, then a whole other group of bacteria take over, and they're called thermophilic bacteria, and they raise the temperature to 150 degrees. 150 degrees. And 145 degree exposure for 1 minute will kill anything. Viruses, parasites, parasite eggs, bacteria, bacterial spores, other kinds of microorganisms, fungi, various. So you have built into the system a natural cleansing mechanism, a natural disinfection. So never turn your compost toilet, your compost bin. Don't turn it. You don't want to disturb that natural temperature increase. You want the microorganisms to do that. In addition, what we find is that some of the microorganisms will actually consume any pathogenic organisms. And in addition, some microorganisms produce antibiotics that kill their competitors. So you've got several things going on in a human manure compost pile that will kill off any potential pathogens. Now the thing to remember too is, unless you've got something, there's going to be nothing in your feces that's going to cause disease. If you've been traveling abroad and you've been in a country where amoebic dysentery is common, or other enteric bacteria are present in microorganisms, yeah, then you might have some disease-causing organisms in your feces. But chances are, if you're healthy, it's pretty clean stuff. Well, it's pretty bacteria healthy stuff. Okay, don't eat it, but it's healthy. Now, another thing I want to caution: we compost everything in our compost bins. We have a farm. We raise ducks, chickens, and grass-fed beef. This compost bin has at least 2 dead opossums in there that our guard dogs killed. It has a couple dead ducks, a dead chicken. We lost 4 or 5 ducks this year. We threw them in there. It's even got a calf that was stillborn in January. And it's got about a 50-pound calf in there. And all our organic waste, toilet paper. Whenever I eat at like Subway or a restaurant and I have a paper towel, I don't throw it away. I put it in my pocket and throw it in my compost bin. Any kind of paper material, old blue jeans, we throw fat, we throw everything in our compost pile, and keep it covered, and nature will take care of that stuff. We'll decompose that stuff. Now, the bones won't always be decomposed. And if you throw a pair of blue jeans in there and you come 6 months later and you dig that compost up, you'll find absolutely no sign of your blue jeans except the zipper. The zipper will be there, okay, undecomposed. Now, another thing is, dogs love this stuff, okay? They love human manure, okay? I love dogs. They're the most amazing creature on earth. They are disgusting creatures. And they just eat poop all the time. What are we spending all this money on gourmet dog food? Just bag poop and they'll eat it, and they'll be happy. So if you do have dogs, or you have neighbors who have dogs, or if you have chickens, you want to be able to cover this compost pile. Not just a layer of straw over the top, but you'll notice we built out of pressure-treated lumber. I built a 4x4 foot frame and put some 1/4-inch hardware cloth over it. So we raise it up, throw the stuff in there, and set it down so nobody can get in there. Now, we also found that we have to run wire along the backs because those silly little chickens will reach their heads in between the boards and the pallets and try to pick the stuff up too. So if you do have chickens and dogs, that's one thing you want to protect against. Question?
Yeah, maybe you answered the question. Can you put dog poop in there too?
We put cat poo in, we put dog poo, and we are banking on the fact that we're leaving it in for a long time.
How long is long?
Really, at least 6 months to a year.
Okay.
And almost always, it's really typically 8 months to a year.
Okay.
And the other thing that we do, which all the books say you can't do, is we use it for our gardens for vegetables. All the books say, oh no, don't compost this stuff and put it in a vegetable garden. It's got to go in fruit trees or a flower garden. We've been doing it for years. And except for this little tremor that I've got, there's absolutely no biological impacts. This is a garden grown on human poop, right there. Look at that stuff. And it's delicious. Not the poop, vegetables. Okay? So we still do bury it kind of deep. We still do bury it down. And I think the books will tell you, some books will tell you need to bury it like 2 feet down. We bury it within the top 12 inches. Okay? So I can't formally recommend that to you, but just to let you know, we've been doing it for years. So if you're interested in learning more about these topics, you might want to take a peek at this book, The Scoop on Poop. That tells you a lot about not only just recycling, capturing those nutrients from the human excretions, but also its gray water systems as well. Now, another thing you can do for self-sufficiency, gardening in an urban or a suburban setting, is to capture rainwater off your roof. Very simple to do, extremely simple technique. Just install a rainwater barrel, rainwater.
To learn more, pick up a copy of Dan Cheris's books, Survive in Style, Living Comfortably Off-Grid, The Scoop on Poop, and Chinese Greenhouse at evergreeninstitute.org.